But we begin tonight with more campus unrest erupting over not just the war in Gaza, but over the military-industrial complex as we know it. More on that in a minute. But first, last night, a stunning scene unfolded in New York City, where the New York Police Department arrested nearly 300 pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University, as well as City College of New York. At Columbia, police stormed Hamilton Hall, an occupied building on campus, after university officials sent the NYPD, one of the most militarized police departments in America, after its own students. This morning, New York Mayor Eric Adams repeated his claim that outside agitators are co-opting college protests and basically hoodwinking the students, who the mayor repeatedly referred to as children.
There is a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done and all of a sudden acknowledge the existence of it. This is a global problem that young people are being influenced by those who are professionals at radicalizing our children, and I'm not going to allow that to happen as the mayor of the city of New York.
The identities of those arrested have not yet been released, but late today, the NYPD told NBC News that so far, 27% of those arrested at Columbia are over the age of 30, and 10% have been arrested multiple times. Of those arrested who are over 30 years of age, some might be faculty or staff or graduate students. So it is too soon to say whether or not they are affiliated with the university. Again, we cannot paint a fuller picture until more identities are released. But per the deputy commissioner, one person has an arrest history dating back to the 2005 G8 summit when the person allegedly assaulted a police officer. The outside agitator narrative has, however, taken off, despite Mayor Adams despite neither Mayor Adams nor the NYPD providing any evidence to back up this claim, other than the apparent use of industrial chains to barricade the doors of Hamilton Hall. Chains that happen to look exactly like the same chains marketed and sold to students by the Columbia University Department of Public Safety at a discount to lock their bikes. Which is all to say, Columbia effectively turned on its own students as negotiations between protesters and the school broke down, with the school's administration claiming they were left with no choice but to call in the police, whom they have asked to maintain a presence on campus until May 17th, 2 days after commencement. The encampment on Columbia's campus has been removed. The tents are gone. As you can see here, the green lawn is visible again, along with the markings where the tents were pitched. Of course, the protests have now metastasized nationwide on multiple campuses throughout the country. Universities now routinely are setting the police, many in riot gear, on their best and brightest. You can almost see the eagerness in law enforcement to shut down these protests, which have been mostly peaceful, but not all. Overnight in Los Angeles, there were violent clashes between the pro-Palestinian encampment and pro-Israel counter-protesters at UCLA. The LAPD said it was responding at the university's request due to, quote, multiple acts of violence. The university canceled all classes today. While in Tucson, police at the University of Arizona cleared out protesters, deploying, quote, chemical irritant munitions according to updates from the school. We know and see what is happening. But the question is why? Why are universities across the country sicking the cops on their own students and professors, essentially turning the awesome power of the state against the very leaders who will someday inherit it? Well, first off, universities have endowment chests and huge financial backers. And some of those donors are very upset that universities are turning out woke people infected by DEI and critical race theory. They don't like it. And they see these protests as a chance to right these institutions ideologically. And then there are the multi-billion-dollar profits you can only see in the business of war, and how our elite educational institutions get involved. A Teen Vogue article on the history of military influence in higher education shows how the financial ties between the U.S. military and American universities stretch back nearly a century. During World War II and the Cold War, these two institutional forces relied on each other to create weapons of mass destruction and space warfare. It continues today with Michael Clare, professor emeritus of peace and world security studies at Hampshire College, saying he has noticed that the Pentagon is once again approaching various universities for help in creating weaponry like artificial intelligence and hypersonic weapons. In fact, students are directly involved in the process of creating military weapons. Joining me now is Jelani Cobb, Dean of the Columbia School of Journalism and an MSNBC contributor. Reverend Mark Thompson, social justice activist and host of the Make It Plain podcast. And Indigo Olivier, reporter and researcher at the New Republic. Thank you all for being here. Jelani, I want to start with you. What is the status of the campus? There will be a police presence all the way through graduation. Where do things stand as of tonight?
So as you pointed out, the campus is pretty much empty right now. And so the campus was on lockdown prior to last night. And so it's eerily quiet at this particular moment. And then
Aren't classes over, Jelani? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but classes are basically over, right, this week?
So classes are over, but finals are not. And then, Columbia has 17 different schools, and they're on slightly different schedules. Slightly staggered schedules, so different people are at different points. But virtually no one, very few schools still have classes going on. That said, the campus is almost empty nonetheless.
And what about this claim by the mayor? You even had Trump today, rather ironically, decrying the lack of law and order in New York just hours after leaving his own criminal trial. So that's a bit ironic. But this claim by Mayor Adams that the campus was beset by outside agitators and terrorists who were duping students to go into Hamilton Hall. Is there any evidence of that?
Yeah, so there are a couple things. One is that I don't think anyone on this campus would use the language of people being quote unquote radicalized. We're here to engage people intellectually and for people to learn and so on. And so I think that is, not an apt explanation. In all of my experience here, over the course of, the past 2 weeks where this has unfolded, I did not hear the word radicalized used by anyone on either side, on any side of this discussion. I will say this, though, toward the point about kind of quote unquote outside people. Here's why it was significant. Gavin McInnes got onto the campus. He got onto the campus when the campus was locked down. And there was the Proud Boy event where they were rallying outside the gates of campus. And so there was a logic that held that if he could get onto the campus, as visible and known as he is, then who else has gotten onto the campus? And those tensions were exacerbated by some of the things that happened by the groups outside. One of which was, a protester, a counter-protester who had an Israeli flag, had it snatched out of his hands and set on fire. And then other people attempted to scale the gates. People who were outside attempted to scale the gates and get inside. And so there was a real concern, and I'm not taking any positions about, the rightness or wrongness. I'm just giving context here. There was a real concern that, who are those people? And the people are capable of behaving like that on the outside. Sure. How might they behave if they were on the inside? And so those were the questions. And the last thing I'll say, I don't want to take up too much time. The last thing I'll say is that there was a real concern that if someone got hurt, the criticism would have been the opposite. Like, why did the university wait so long to do something? And so I think those are very many kinds of calculations that people had to make at the time.
Mark, we know that obviously Fox News took full advantage of this, decrying this as New York out of control and violence, et cetera. We know people like Christopher Rufo did talk about outside agitators. The guy who created the fake moral panic over critical race theory in DEI was urging the right to get on those campuses and cause trouble, to make it bad for Biden, to turn it into a political thing. So we know that was happening. But you were actually talking to the students inside Hamilton Hall. How did things devolve to the point where police were called?
Well, thanks for having me, Joy. I led a worship service there at the encampment on Sunday, an interfaith service. Yesterday, I was contacted early by Governor Hochul's chief of staff, Stacey Lynch. She reached out to see if I could assist in getting the students on the line. She was working with getting the university on the line to restart negotiations to really avert calls that they were getting to send in the National Guard. They also wanted to avoid the kind of police raid that happened last night. And so it was literally like an episode of 24. We spent all day yesterday trying to bring something together. As late as 8:30 last night, there was a plan for myself, the governor's chief of staff, Ms. Lynch, and a city government official to enter the campus, to speak with the students in Hamilton Hall, or not exactly in the hall, but just outside of it. They were going to be given safe passage to talk to us. A university official then agreed to meet with us after. While I was en route listening over the phone, there were 3 breach commands given by the police, followed by at least 3 stand-down commands by a civilian official. Just before we could get to the campus after reaching this agreement, the police, for whatever reason, just could not hold. I'm still not clear. I'm looking to find out who gave the order. But as we were about to enter the campus, it was breached and everything was off. This could have been avoided. The other goal, and I commend the work Jelani has done to keep things together, but also on the part of Ms. Lynch and the governor's office, they had expressed to me a desire to try to have some of the students' demands met as well. So this could have gone down much differently.
Very quickly, before I get to Indigo, what were the demands specifically?
So the demands were the same as they had always been: disclosure and divestment when it came to the university's relationship with Israel. And I know you want to talk about the military piece. We can do that as well.
Yeah.
Also, what has not been well reported, and Jelani knows more about this than I do, we just discovered the university's satellite campus, Tel Aviv University, does not allow admission to Palestinian students, or at least no admission to Palestinian students who don't have Israeli identification.
Right.
And that's a serious concern because that's somewhat segregationist.
Right.